If you notice details others completely miss, changes in someone's mood from tiny facial cues, objects moved slightly in a room, patterns and connections others don't see, or not paranoid, obsessive, or overthinking, neuroscience reveals you have heightened perceptual sensitivity, and your brain processes environmental and social information with exceptional detail that most people's brains filter out automatically. And this changes everything about how you experience the world. Let's talk about something that makes you feel both gifted and cursed. You'll notice everything. When you walk into a room, you immediately register details others miss: a picture hung slightly crooked, a new scratch on furniture, someone's changed expression, subtle tension in the air. You pick up on micro-expressions that reveal what people are really feeling beneath what they're saying. You notice when something's been moved, changed, or is different. You see patterns, connections, and inconsistencies that others completely overlook. And this constant noticing is exhausting. Your brain never rests because there's always something to process, analyze, understand. People think you're paranoid when you mention things they don't see. They call you obsessive when you can't stop noticing. They say you're overthinking when you're just processing what your brain automatically detects. But here's what psychology and neuroscience reveal. You're not paranoid or obsessive. You have heightened perceptual sensitivity. Your brain's attentional system is lower, filtering thresholds, and higher detection sensitivity than average. You notice everything because your brain processes more environmental information instead of filtering it out. This is neurological difference, not psychological dysfunction. Research from cognitive neuroscience shows that attention works like a filter. Your brain receives massive amounts of sensory information every second, but you can only consciously process a fraction of it. Most people have automatic filtering that screens out irrelevant information so they can focus on what matters. This filtering happens unconsciously. Their brains decide what to notice and what to ignore without conscious effort. But some people have what researchers call reduced latent inhibition. Their brains filter less automatically, allowing more information into conscious awareness. Studies show that people with reduced latent inhibition notice stimuli that others' brains automatically suppress. You're not trying to notice everything. Your brain, which just doesn't filter as much out. Here's what's happening neurologically. Brain imaging studies show that people who notice everything have different activation patterns in attentional networks. Specifically, the brain regions responsible for filtering sensory input, particularly the thalamus and prefrontal cortex, show different activity patterns. Your brain's default setting lets more information through the filter. This means you're consciously aware of details, patterns, and changes that others process subconsciously or not at all. You're not more observant through effort. Your brain architecture creates automatic heightened awareness. Let's talk about the specific things you notice that others don't. First, environmental changes: objectives moved, things out of place, new items, missing items. Your brain maintains detailed spatial memory and alerts you to discrepancies. Second, micro-expressions and body language: fleeting facial expressions, tension in posture, eye movements, voice tone changes. Your social perception system picks up subtle emotional cues. Third, patterns and connections: relationships between events, recurring themes, cause-effect links others miss. Your pattern recognition system is highly active. Fourth, inconsistencies and contradictions: when someone's words don't match their behavior, when something doesn't add up, your brain automatically flags logical inconsistencies. Fifth, sensory details: subtle sounds, faint smells, slight temperature changes, visual details and periphery. Here's the social advantage this creates. Research shows that people who notice everything tend to be more empathetic because they pick up on others' emotional states from minimal cues. They're better at reading social situations because they process more information about group dynamics. Studies show they're often more intuitive. What seems like intuition is actually rapid processing of subtle information others miss. Understand people and situations at deeper levels because you're working with more data. But here's the exhausting reality. Noticing everything is cognitively expansive. Your brain is constantly processing information that others' brains ought to discard. Research shows that reduced filtering leads to cognitive overload. You're aware of too much crips, which makes it harder to focus on what actually matters. Studies show that people who notice everything often struggle with selective attention. Can't easily ignore the irrelevant because your brain doesn't automatically define things as irrelevant. This creates constant mental activity that's exhausting. Let's address the paranoid accusation you face. When you notice that someone's mood changed, that there's tension in a room, that something's off, others don't notice these things, so they think you're imagining them or being paranoid. But research shows you're often right. Studies on perception show that people who notice subtle cues are generally more accurate in their assessments than people who don't notice them. You're not paranoid, you're picking up on real information that others miss. The problem is you can't prove what you're noticing because it's based on subtle cues others can't see. Research on anxiety disorder shows a complicated relationship with heightened noticing. Anxiety can increase vigilance. Anxious people scan environments for threats more actively. But heightened noticing can also cause anxiety when you're constantly aware of everything, including subtle signs of danger or problems. You experience more stress. Studies show bidirectional relationship. Heightened noticing can lead to anxiety, and anxiety increases noticing. If you notice everything and feel anxious, it's worth considering whether the noticing causes the anxiety or vice versa. Here's the autism spectrum connection. Many autistic people have heightened perceptual sensitivity. They notice sensory details, patterns, and changes that neurotypical people don't. Research shows this isn't deficit but different processing. Brains often have reduced filtering, leading to rich, detailed perception but also sensory overwhelm. If you notice everything, you might share some perceptual traits with autistic processing even if you're not autistic. Let's talk about the ADHD connection. People with ADHD often notice everything because their attentional filter doesn't work. Typically, they struggle to suppress irrelevant stimuli. Research shows ADHD brains are aware of more environmental information, which creates distractibility but also heightened awareness. If you have ADHD and notice everything, the two traits are connected. Both involve reduced filtering of sensory and perceptual input. Here's the creative advantage research reveals. Studies show that reduced latent inhibition noticing things others filter out correlates with creativity and innovation. Artists, writers, inventors often notice connections and patterns others miss. Their heightened perception feeds creative work. Research shows that many highly creative people have lower filtering thresholds, allowing them to see relationships and possibilities others overlook. Your noticing everything isn't just burden, it's often source of creative insight. Research on highly sensitive people, HSPs, shows strong overlap with noticing everything. HSPs process all information more deeply, including subtle environmental and social cues. Studies show HSPs have heightened awareness of details, changes, and nuances. If you're HSP, you're noticing everything as part of broader, deep processing tendency. You're not just noticing, you're also processing what you notice more thoroughly than others. Let's address the practical challenges. First, you can't unsee what you see. Once you notice something, you can't ignore it even if it's not important. Second, others think you're making things up. They don't see what you see, so they discount your observations. Third, you spot problems before others. You see issues developing, but others won't believe you until problems become obvious. Fourth, you're overwhelmed by busy environments. Too much to notice creates sensory and cognitive overload. Fifth, you second-guess yourself when others don't see what you see. You wonder if you're wrong even though you're usually right. Here's the relationship dynamic. If you notice everything about your partner, mood shifts, subtle changes in behavior, small inconsistencies, you might seem obsessive or controlling. But you're just processing information your brain automatically detects. Research shows that partners who notice subtle emotional cues can be more responsive and caring, but they can also seem intrusive if they comment on everything they notice. The key is learning what to mention and what to process privately. Research on memory shows that people who notice everything often have exceptional memory for details. Studies show that attention during encoding predicts later memory. If you notice something, you're more likely to remember it. Your detailed observations create rich memories. This is advantage for some tasks but can be burden when you remember every slight, every mistake, every uncomfortable moment in detail. Let's talk about the pattern recognition gift. Noticing everything allows you to see patterns others miss. You connect information across time and context because you remember and process more data. Research shows that pattern recognition is crucial for